Hi everyone, this is Jim. Welcome to episode 45 of Chess Basics, things every chess player ought to know. Before I get into the video, I wanted to talk a little bit about this series. I am about ready to call it a wrap on Chess Basics. I've covered pretty much everything I wanted to cover. I just have a few more things I would like to talk about in games and in tactics, and after that I will call it a wrap. So I want to thank you all for viewing this series. I think I got a lot of good feedback on it, so I've been very pleased with it. I think this is a good length for it, too. I don't want to just continue the series indefinitely and make it too imposing. As it stands now, it's about 9 hours long, and with a few more videos, maybe 10 hours. I think that's a decent length for a program of study. You could imagine taking on this series, going through the whole playlist over a period of weeks, and you could spend longer on it, of course, if you wanted to. At an hour a week, it'd be like a college quarter, I guess. Anyway, I'm happy with it at this length. And the other thing I wanted to say was that there were a few requests for additional coverage of the openings. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start a new series aimed at the chess openings. So I will cover those topics that I've promised in that series. And I'll keep the coverage at the same level as I have been doing within the openings in the Chess Basics series. That seems to be about the right level. So anyway, let's get to this video. I'm going to cover a few topics in the endgame, some additional topics that I wanted to bring up, and some that were brought up by viewers making comments on my earlier videos. So this is a comment on Chess Basics number 3. This position comes from Chess Basics number 3, where I was talking about the opposition. And the opposition is how you win this position. You place your king in front of the pawn on d5, and you've got opposition against your opponent. He's forced to move to the side, and then you can come forward, and now you're making a path for the pawn. Not like that. You're making a path for the pawn. And if he steps in front of it, you can grab the opposition again and keep going like this. And now the pawn is going all the way through and becoming a queen. There's no stopping it. So that's how you win. The question is, what happens if you don't grab the opposition? What if you just move your king straight forward? Well, the answer is you don't win anymore. The king goes in front of your king, and there's just no more way to make progress. You can't do anything here. What did I try? I tried king b5. Yeah, if you go further to the side, the king can even come forward and get closer to the pawn, and this is a drawn position. Other tries from here are pushing the pawn, but the king can come in front of it, and that's also a draw. So in this position, there is only one move that wins for white, and that is to take the opposition. So it's really critical to examine these positions with the opposition and make sure you know what you're doing rather than just dashing out the move. Okay, the next position I wanted to look at is from Chess Basics 11. There was a comment when I was talking about the case of the bishop pawn. There's a draw with the queen against a bishop pawn, which is kind of surprising. And the viewer commented that there's also a draw in the case of a queen versus a rook pawn, which is maybe not as surprising. Rook pawns are always tricky, but I should show it just for completeness. So it's white's turn to move. White gets a queen, and black gets his pawn one step closer to queening. And one way to think about it is, think of this imaginary line here. Looks like this. And if the pawn ever crosses that line, then you can't stop it, basically, with the queen. There's no series of checks or anything that will allow you to stop that pawn once it's crossed this crooked line. So in most files, here, here, and here, and here, if it's on the 7th rank, you can stop it. But for the special case of the rook and the bishop pawn, you can't stop it on the 7th rank. You have to stop it on the 6th rank. So, well, let's give it a try. Say queen g7, check, king goes forward. He wants to always maintain the threat of queening that pawn. He could try chasing the king around like this, creeping in closer. You can get as close as you like, basically. And there's just no way to get in. If you could get your queen in front of the pawn, it would be all clear, but the king is always guarding that square. You can try coming around here and checking from this side, but now the king can actually go in front of the pawn, and you don't have time. Normally when the king goes in front of the pawn, that's when you want to move your king forward, but here it's a stalemate. There's no moves for the king or the pawn, so that's why the rook pawn is a draw in this case. If you move the queen forward, it's still a stalemate. Your only try is queen here, and then the king just steps out of the way, once again threatening to queen a pawn, and all you can do is deliver more checks. There's just no progress. So in the next position, this is the same. I just move the pawn one step further back. So you get a queen, he moves forward, and now you've caught him on the line, and you're going to win this game with the correct play. You can just check from the side and kind of creep in like we saw in the previous example. The king wants to stay near the pawn to protect it and not step in front of it because he doesn't want to block it and let your king come forward. So king will most likely go between these two squares, and then when he gets to this square you deliver this check, and now you can check from this square, and now you are threatening to win the pawn, so he has to move back here to defend it. And now you can just move in with your king. You can make another queen move. Let's show this line first. If you just move in with your king, his king is forced to move. The pawn is blocked, and his king only has one square it can go to. The queen is guarding these squares. So that simple king move actually forces his king away from the pawn, and you win that way. So you can just continue playing with queen c3 was played here. Oh, this is another neat trick. You just move the queen. You're covering all these squares, and once again the king only has one square to go to, and you can grab the pawn. So lots of different ways to round up that pawn here when it's far enough back. And now, just as a refresher, I thought I'd put on the bishop pawn case. So you get a queen, and the bishop pawn goes forward, and now it's crossed that imaginary line here. Let's put the line on again. This is that imaginary line, and if the pawn crosses that line, then black is going to draw the game. So you can try a few things. Queen g7 check, okay. King b1, just staying not getting in front of the pawn, maintaining the threat of queening. You can creep in with queen to b7 check, okay, coming this way, and the king steps aside. You go here, king steps back, go here, check, and now you've reached that ideal position with the queen where you've forced the king in front of the pawn, and your king can move in. But your opponent surprises you by playing here. He doesn't have to go in front of the pawn, because if you grab it, that's stalemate. And if you don't grab it, then if you move your king, he will queen, so you've got to just keep delivering checks. And so there's no progress. Whereas if the pawn is one step further back, so you get a queen, he moves the pawn forward. Now the pawn is on the line, and you can stop it. You can come in with queen g7 is a pin, stopping it from going forward. King b3, going beside the pawn, letting it continue, but still protecting it. Queen can go to g5. This is kind of a neat trick. The queen is guarding this square. So if you ever push the pawn here, the queen can just get in front of it. And that's kind of the simplest way to stop the pawn. Now the queen can just sit here and not move, and the king can just march in along this diagonal. And when it gets to this square, the queen can take the pawn. And there's no way to stop it. So easy win. So in this position, black won't move his pawn forward. He'll move the king again. And you can just keep creeping in. Queen e5 with the pin. King back to b3. Queen to f4 with the threat. Cancel that. Queen to e3 was okay. Yeah, same idea. Queen to e3 with the threat on this square. King b2. Queen d4. What is this? Oh, it's with the pin. King b3. Queen f4. Okay, I did this in kind of a roundabout way. Queen b4 check. Finally, you get to this position here. This is where you want to be, with the check to the king and the attack on the pawn. And now if he steps away, you can take it. There's no stalemate. So he's forced in front of the pawn, and then your king can come in. So that's how you can win these games in general. You do those checks and pins until you get to this ideal position, forces king in front of the pawn, and then you move your king in, and it's only a draw in those two cases with the rook pawn and the bishop pawn where it's a stalemate when his king goes in front of the pawn. Okay, so that wraps it up for the king and pawn stuff with the stalemate and the queen. I wanted to show you one example of a real-life endgame, and this introduces another principle. Let's turn it around. A couple of ideas. So I thought this would be interesting to work through an example of a real-world chess endgame. So this was played in a blitz game. I had the black pieces, and it's black's turn to move, and there is one move here that wins. And so if you want to think about it, you can pause the video and think about it, how you would play this endgame. It's worth considering. There's a lot of things going on here. Okay, I'm gonna give the answer away now. It starts with the move bishop takes, and then pawn takes is the natural reply and the only reply really. And now you're in a king and pawn endgame, and the winning move here is actually this move, h5. And what it does is it keeps his king from getting in. His king can't cross this line. And now if it wants to get in and attack your pawns, it's got to go all the way around. And in the meantime, your king can get a better position. Now in the actual game, I did not play h5. I played h takes g5. And white has this clever way of drawing here. So this is part of why I wanted to show this. He didn't play this either. He just did the natural recapture, which is what I was assuming he would do. But if he were to not recapture and push his pawn forward, then this is a draw with best play. And in fact, I have to be a little bit careful. If I go directly to this f6 square where I'm defending my pawn, my opponent's king can go forward, attack my pawn, and force me away. I mean, my pawns are all blocked, and if my king moves away, I'm losing this pawn, and white actually wins this position. So this is a common situation in endgames. You don't want to take that critical position right away. You want to hang back so you're nearby, and so you can hang out here as long as you like, and of course his king can hang out here, and nobody's going to make any progress. When he finally comes forward to attack your pawn, you go there, and that's why this is a draw. He's never going to advance his pawn because you can just take it. So that was a mistake when I took the pawn. Like I said, I should have just played h5, but it's a blitz game I took, and he took back. So that's how the game went. And now I played the move, you can guess this one if you want. I played the move g6, just taking away all moves from him. And once again, we're in that situation where he can't get in. He can't get in. These squares are covered by my pawns. He can't go here, he can't go here, can't go there where his pawn is. So he's got to try and come around. He can't sneak in on this side. And I am just one step ahead of him here. So the advantage that I have here is strictly an advantage in king position. And that's enough to win the game. Even though the material is even, a superior king position will win an endgame. So he's over here, and he's going to try and take the opposition if I let him. But I keep going around, and he can't get past me. If he goes to the side here, I can just walk in this way and take his pawn. So he needs to stay in touch with his pawn. He goes here, and I start marching in now towards the white pawn. Now he's got to go back to defend it. Once again, if he goes to this square, he didn't play that, then I just go here and round up his pawn. So grabbing the opposition here, it's too late. My king is already in excellent shape to round up all of white's pawns, so it's too late for black to try and save it by grabbing the opposition. So he goes back here to defend the pawn, and now I come forward. I grab the opposition in this direction, and he's just going to be forced away. If he moves back, though that's what he did, then I step forward to this square. He can come and defend the pawn, but I step here, and now he resigned at this point. His only move is to step back or away from the pawn in some way, and I will round up this pawn and then the other one and win it. So I thought a real-life game, a nice illustration of some key points on how to play the endgame. I hope you guys enjoyed that. I am going to do one more video on the endgames. The next video is going to have some classic studies and also another real-world example. So stay tuned for that, and I'll see you then. Bye.